Hey everyone, Daniel Moeller here. I haven't made a video since forever ago, so I wanted to take this opportunity to do kind of a year-end review of the recap of 2019 and also what's coming forth for me. So really what I would like to kind of highlight is this was the year of Shamanic Kabbalah. The release of my book came out from Llewellyn this time last year. I got to go to PantheaCon and a couple of other conventions for publishers and mystical conventions, to do book signings, to do presentations. It's really been a fun time. Llewellyn's been a very supportive publisher. I've just received my royalty check a couple of months ago, and I was like, whew, I was astounded and very surprised at the level of sales that I'm getting for this book. So thank you so much for your support, everyone. Greatly appreciate it. At the same time, another release from Llewellyn has come out, Llewellyn's Magical Almanac for 2020. I do have a supplement article, a chapter in here that I've written, and I also have another one coming out in the Magical Almanac for 2021. So these are the projects that I've been working on. I've had a lot of transition in my life, so I haven't I don't have anything else in the works except for I do have a comic that I just completed, and it'll be serialized in a couple of independent comic zines coming up in 2020. As you see here, I'm in my new creative space. I've got my drawing table behind me here. I've really been getting back into illustration, which is a passion of mine since I was a child. So comic books are the number one medium of entertainment for me. So really heavily getting back into that. I'm hoping to maybe have a submission that I can make to Fantagraphics or Image or some other major publisher after it's been serialized in the zine for a little while. So I'm getting ready to print some copies that I can send out, maybe get some endorsements, just get some people excited over it. So a lot happening on that front. So other than that, I love to do book reviews because I love to read books and I love to talk about books. And frankly, I love to write book reviews, but at the same time, I don't have the time, and I haven't had the time to write book reviews for everything that I've read this year. I've so many things have come across my palette, and what I wanted to do was highlight some of the top books that I've looked at, that I've read in 2019, starting from the beginning of the year and moving backwards, or forwards, whichever that is. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So right around, actually, I think it was day one of 2019, January 1st, I went to the Tibetan Buddhist Center, Remade Buddhist Center here in Kansas City, and picked up this great piece called The Great Medicine That Conquers Clinging to the Notion of Reality. Excellent title and an excellent text by Shezhen Rabjam. I'm horrible with Buddhist-oriented pronunciations. I'm horrible with pronunciations, even English pronunciations. Excellent book on eliminating suffering within the mind and how to kind of be in the world coming from a place of compassion and also coming from a place of the middle road, just, in that Zen style of understanding that you don't have to react to the reality around you. Really about how reality is nothing but a grand illusion, and it's kind of sort of a game that we play. This is a commentary of the original text, the original, I guess you would call, I don't know what they're called, koans or poems or whatnot, but excellent read. Next, when I went to PantheaCon, I had the pleasure in the Llewellyn suite to win a free book from someone that I got to meet named Melanie Markey. Melanie Markey is huge in the metaphysical community. She has an excellent tarot deck out, many other books, and she wrote this book on Carl Llewellyn Washki himself, the man who really made the Llewellyn Publishing House top dog in the metaphysical publishing community. And all about his journey to making Llewellyn one of the number one publishing houses, but just about the community that he created. Melanie is a really good biographer. She's a really good writer in general. I love biographies, but a lot of times biographies are can get kind of boring and tenuous. And she manages to write in such a way that it not simple, but entertaining and just fun, and just keeps you excited and invigorated throughout the whole book. So got to meet Melanie. She wrote an inscription in this for me. Wonderful person, by the way. And she wrote, "To Daniel, wonderful to meet you. You are a great Daniel, and you will become even more." Melanie Markey. So the very eccentric individual she is full of magic. She's just one of those people that as soon as she walks into the room, magic abounds. So you cannot go wrong picking up anything from Melanie Markey. What else do we got here? This is another book I started at the beginning of the year. Very quick read. It's a book called Advanced Magic for Beginners by Alan Chapman. Awesome cover, by the way. This is probably the most simple book on magic that I've ever read in my life. What it is, how to get started, it's brass tacks. I feel very confident I could hand this book to anyone. Any guy off the street, guy or gal, even someone who's just works in a cubicle their whole life and they have no interest, they could read this and understand that magic isn't this crazy nebulous thing that exists only in fantasy, but it's about how to create the world that you want around you. And it's simple and it's fun as hell. This guy made me laugh a couple of times out loud, and I don't usually laugh while reading. I enjoy funny books and texts. I think the only other author I've read out loud reading is Tom Robbins in his books. Other than that, excellent. I recommend. The sucker you could read really in an evening if you wanted to blow through it. It's only about 150 some pages, but it's just a quick read. It's excellent. Another book I read was some esoteric tome I kind of just found while searching through the bowels of the internet by a fellow named Brother Philip, called Secret of the Andes. It's all about really a secret ancient society that lives in the underground of Peru and has helped foster the enlightenment of human beings upon Pachamama, upon Mother Earth. Very crazy interesting. I started reading it because I also started reading Graham Hancock's new book, Magicians of the Gods, and just kind of corresponded with that. And I'm not really into just weird mystical, what the hell, secret history kind of channeled sort of texts, although this isn't really channeled. Well, it kind of is in the end. But I don't know, something about it grabbed me. This is an old copy. I think you can get a new copy on Amazon, but I don't know, something about it just grabbed me, and it being having some sort of grip on the reality that we do live in. Magicians of the Gods. So I was lucky enough, this is another part of my year, to have been featured as Author of the Month on Graham Hancock's website. And right around the same time that he was putting out his new book, Magicians of the Gods. So if you don't know, Graham Hancock is one of the leading authors on fringe archaeology. He's not an archaeologist himself. He's just really good about going out and doing the research, talking to archaeologists that are doing the work, and finding all these threads in the work that's being done, and really proposing in Fingerprints of the Gods that our history as human beings is way more ancient than what we give credit for. And this book even takes it back even further. And the central premise, it starts with Göbekli Tepe, which is another ancient site, which introduces the notion that history is much more old than what we give credit. Human beings, advanced human beings, exist far older than what we normally attribute history to being, to whatever. Blah, 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 blah. But the overall premise is that we did have some sort of advanced civilization beforehand, and that a comet wiped it out. And there's all this archaeological evidence of different people, scientists that he's talked to, that believe in this. But just mainstream will not allow this to be part of the normal mainstream conversation. So mainstream scientists are always pushing back. And really, I think just mainstream academia. I mean, I think scientists that are doing the work understand that, our world is far more stranger and different than what we realize. So it's a big book, but it is worth it because Graham's an excellent writer. I appreciate the props that he gave me, and being able to be author of the month on his website. It gave me a lot of hits. I actually ended up being, you could see my book on the Joe Rogan show when he was talking to Joe Rogan, and if they go to his website, and as you watch the video of the Joe Rogan podcast, they go to the website, Graham Hancock's website, and my book is like featured right there as like the featured author. I was just, it was really exciting for me. So thank you, Graham, if you happen upon this video, and excellent work. Strongly corresponded with Secret of the Andes. Another book that has come out is from a good friend of mine named Stephanie Redfeather, called The Evolutionary Empath, from Inner Traditions, Barbarian company, which was another company that I considered publishing with, and that they were willing to give me a contract for, but I went with Llewellyn just because I'd heard more things of Llewellyn at the time. But I think Inner Traditions is a good company as well. Heard a lot of great things about them. Excellent book for anyone who feels like that they have any sort of inclinations about growing your intuition as an empathic human being in any way, shape, or form, whether it's mystical or even not. If you're just feel like you're empathic in nature and your personality, it's an excellent book. I actually gave this book to a friend of mine that's not mystically inclined at all, because she was just wanting to get more in touch with her intuition as a human being. And Stephanie Redfeather used to be in the military, and so she's very good about giving, very strong practical advice and being able to speak to anyone. I was very honored that she actually asked me to provide an endorsement. So I'm one of those that was able to provide an endorsement for her book. I don't know if you can see somewhere there, but there's my name. This to me was like way bigger than even getting my book published. The fact that anybody would ask me to endorse a book for them, it was a huge honor. I not only just because I know Stephanie, but she's an incredible ceremonialist, an incredible brain. I highly recommend putting this sucker on your Christmas list. Oh, there's another book. I don't have it in my hands just yet that I was asked for an endorsement by another top dog in the metaphysical community, Jason Mankey. His book, Wheel of the Year, it released just this week, I believe, from Llewellyn, and asked me to provide an endorsement, which was a huge honor as well. Got to meet Jason when I was in Atlanta, and for a convention there. Awesome guy. He's so much fun. Great person, so pick up that book as well. And now, comics, because about halfway through the year, I just really began diving back into the comic book world. My wife, there's a portrait of her behind me here, really got me back into doing my art, which is something that I've neglected for well over a decade at this point, and got me back in touch with my first love, which is comic books. And I also attribute the fellows of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel who have been inspiring me to get back into making comics and reading more comics. So anyway, started diving into that world again and kind of uncovering things that I've been missing out on. One of the first pieces I picked up there is from Ted McKeever called Metaphor. This guy's work, I mean, his black and whites, he's just incredible. His figures are just surreal, and his story as well is just as surreal as the artwork. And I don't really know how to describe this book, but it starts out with a guy in an astronaut suit who wakes up on a beach next to a carnival area that's like kind of abandoned. It looks like it's after an apocalypse. And encounters a giant woman dressed as Santa Claus, and it just goes from there. And I don't really know. Again, I don't really know how I could describe the story, but it gripped me. The artwork just like pulls you in. It's kind of like just the way Ted McKeever's work is just kind of like having a dream. So very surreal. Loved this book. I love the size too. It's not your normal comic book size, and I'm hoping my comic book I can get printed in this size format. I think this is actually the perfect size for a trade paperback, personally. Next one, I would say this has turned out to be my all-time favorite book of the year and that I've read, as well as just probably one of my top favorite comic books and even fiction books. It's getting up on that list. It's probably somewhere in the top 20. Scott McCloud is an incredible comic book cartoonist, illustrator, writer, and scholar. He started out writing a black and white book called Zot back in the 80s. Zot was really a very long run there, but it was kind of his mode of experimentation. And then eventually created a book called Understanding Comics, which ended up being a huge award winner. It's all about like the philosophy and the method of comics and what it does as an artistic medium. Created a sequel called Reinventing Comics, and then another sequel or triplet, whatever, called Making Comics, which is all excellent work. And after he did Making Comics, he thought, well, I need to actually make a comic book now to talk about all the things that I've been talking about in these books about comics. So he made this huge sucker called Sculptor. I read it over vacation, coincidentally right around the time when I really started getting back into my artwork, into doing artwork. Read it in the mountains. And this book, oh my God. It's about a fellow who is an artist who makes a deal with this one figure here. This like mystical figure. He's got, well here, just let me read. Thanks to a deal with death, the young sculptor gets his childhood wish to sculpt anything he can imagine with his bare hands. But now that he has only 200 days to live, deciding what to create is harder than he thought, and discovering the love of his life at the 11th hour isn't making it any easier. This book, like, it just, my heart just, it was, I don't know what to say. This book has elevated Scott McCloud as being one of my all-time favorite cartoonists of all time. I already loved him and respected him, but this book is incredible. It's got a nice endorsement from Neil Gaiman. So I don't know how much better of an endorsement that you can get than Neil Gaiman, at least from someone who's alive right now. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Another excellent book, another huge award winner. I haven't read it up until now. It's been out for quite some time. Black Hole by Charles Burns. Charles Burns started out in Raw magazine, which was a magazine, independent magazine based out of New York, with New York comic artists and a lot of people from the college New York art scene that was spearheaded by Art Spiegelman and some other person of French descent, and I can't remember their name right now. Charles Burns had a lot of supplements in that magazine, Raw. And this is like his seminal work. It's the most well-known. You can see this work on any top list of graphic novels anywhere. I think Time Magazine even has it listed as one of the top 100 books of all time, maybe, or maybe it was just top 100 graphic novels, not sure. But incredible book. The ink work of Charles Burns is just striking. The imagery is just It's incredible, and it's very disturbing. I actually read this right around Halloween, and it was perfect. Just an incredibly disturbing book in such a brilliant way. I love this book. It is worthy of all the props that it gets, and I hope Charles Burns makes a living off of it for the rest of his days. And then a couple of other pieces that I want to highlight. Tom Scioli, American Barbarian. Tom Scioli is an artist that has a lot of Jack Kirby, Alex Toth sort of influences in his artwork. And right now he's doing Fantastic Four Grand Design, which I'm very much looking forward to. One of his more popular works, he did Godland with Joe Casey at Image Comics. He also did Transformers versus G.I. Joe series, as well as he did a GoBot series, which I haven't read yet, but I want to see. Taking all of that, this guy understands what it was like to grow up as a kid in the 80s and what these cartoons and comic books meant, like that, what those worlds meant. You take this book is every goddamn Saturday morning cartoon that ever existed on the face of the earth, and it's just in one giant action-packed volume of just ridiculousness. It's like He-Man, Thunder the Barbarian, all mixed together into just this like glorious display of Power Punch Saturday morning cereal. If Saturday morning cereal could be a comic book, this would be it. Props to Tom Scioli in his work. My only complaint about this is I wish it could have just gone on forever. It's just way too short. It's way too quick of a read. Not that I haven't just gone through it to just drink up all of the imagery inside of it, because, I mean, look how glorious that is. But God, Tom Scioli, I cannot wait for Fantastic Four Grand Design, which is basically going to be a retelling of the entire Fantastic Four history. Tom Scioli is a god amongst men. And then finally, one of the cartoonist kayfabe fellas, including Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor, are the two main guys that run the cartoonist kayfabe channel. Jim Rugg's Street Angel actually is another go-to one. I should have pulled that out. Another great book. It just came out, the Image Comics version of that, Deadliest Girl Alive. I haven't picked it up yet, so otherwise I would have shown it on this channel, but excellent work by Jim Rugg. This is Ed Piskor, who did Hip Hop Family Tree, and is basically the thing that he's living off of right now because it's done so well. And he did kind of like a historic retelling of the XMen called XMen Grand Design. So these books, as you can see, are really big and large, kind of like the Hip Hop Family Tree format, like magazine style, newsstand style. I don't know what kind of style of book this is. But Ed Piskor came from independent comics. He got his start with Harvey Pekar, and just excellent artist. He's so much fun. I have, instead of forcing my family to read the entire run of X-Men, I just asked them all to read this. Like, don't watch the goddamn movies. Just read this and you will get everything you need to know about X-Men and what makes X-Men so great. He captures the history of the X-Men in such a way that, well, really, in the way that got us all excited about X-Men in the first place back in the 80s and 90s. So, thank you, Ed Piskor, for such a great work. It is complete, these 3 volumes. I got to meet Ed Piskor just recently at a signing, who is excellent. So got some awesome signatures on there from him. So and some drawings as well. So Ed Piskor is a good guy, as well as Jim Rugg. It's an excellent channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe, if you haven't checked it out. But these are the main books that I am working on, or I have read. I'm sorry. I do have a couple of books as I move away from the screen here that I'm tackling right now. I am trying to get through Scott McCloud's Zot, because I've only read a couple of like individual issues before, but I brought this compendium that is not the complete Zot, but is a selection of the black and white issues and runs. Sorry, I just bumped into everything here. So I'm getting through this right now. I'm almost done with it, actually. Very enjoyable. You get to see Scott McCloud's evolution as an artist and just some of the things that he did to begin experimenting with the medium. Very excellent work. And then 2 books that I'm just like struggling to get through, not because they're bad in any way, shape, or form, but they're just deep works. Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic Tradition by Francis Yates, who is one of the number one. She's one of the number one scholars in the Hermetic tradition. And Giordano Bruno was a monk in the 1500s that was burned for heresy because he was performing magic and studying Hermeticism within his particular spiritual practice. And this is all about really the whole first half of the book is about the Hermetic tradition, specifically within the age of the Renaissance, and how important it was to Renaissance thinking. And then the latter half of the book is more about Giordano Bruno specifically. So I'm slowly getting through this sucker. It is highly, highly academic. It's not an enjoyable read, but it's brilliant. And then Outer Gateways. This book cost a pretty penny. Any book by Kenneth Grant is going to put a big dent in your checking account because their print runs are very rare. Kenneth Grant was is a I don't want to say follower, but a student of the Crowleyan tradition of magic, Thelema, and really takes off with the notion of what Crowley was really trying to get at in the first place was make your own religion. You make your own. That's the whole point of magic is you create your own spiritual path, your own hierarchy of or the lack thereof, or cosmology of beings or deities or the way the universe works. You are actually the one that creates that. Every man and woman is a star is something that Crowley espoused in his works. That's the saying that he would have throughout his published works. And what that means is that you are the one in which the universe should orbit around. Where all the bodies orbit around the star within a solar system, you shouldn't be slave to the universe. You should be master of it and master of your own path and your own spiritual path. Kenneth Grant has a whole series of works, and I think this actually starts in the middle of a trilogy that's really dense, really complex, involves H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, involves the star Sirius. It ties a lot into a lot of Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger. Every time I even get anywhere in this book, it leads me down other paths to research and pull in. So I've actually been working on this all year, and look where I'm at in it. It is incredibly dense, but incredible. It is a great work. I probably need to brush up more on my Crowleyan stuff. I haven't read any Crowley for a long time, and when I did, it was in college, and I didn't understand it then at all, or understand what he meant at that time, what he stood for. So it would be good to kind of revisit some of that stuff, which I might do this next year. So that's about it. Those are the highlights of the things that I've read. No real movie reviews at all, except I did post one out about The Man Who Killed Don Quixote by Terry Gilliam this past year, which that's the film highlight of the past year, in my opinion. Terry Gilliam is a genius. Nothing more needs to be said about that. And we've been waiting to see this movie for years, decades. So I'm so happy that he was finally able to get that out. Anyway, I've rattled on long enough. That's about all I want to say. Please stay tuned. You can check out my website. I've made some updates to it, as well as the work that I have coming out in the future. So there'll be 2 comic zines that my next comic will be serialized in. The first one is the Wizard zine, which is made by the cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats Facebook group, as well edited by Eli Schwab, who is one of the primary editors of the Ween comic zine. Love the band Ween, so that's like an incredible, nice, synchronistic little connection there. And then 100% Comics, which I think is based out of California. So once those start their serialization, which should be the beginning of the year, I'm going to start compiling issues of my comic to send out and see what we can do. See if I can't generate some support for some sort of official publication. So Anyway, thanks everybody for any of your support. If you liked my stuff on Facebook or shared it or liked my videos, it always means so much to me, as well as anytime anybody has purchased any of my work. Thank you so much. Feel free to contact me anytime via my website. You want to talk about just weird esoteric stuff, I'm always open to that. Or even comics oriented stuff, open to that as well. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube. I think that's it. No, you can find me on Twitter as well as Instagram. So everybody take care. Have a wonderful end to your 2019 and an awesome start to your 2020. Talk to you later.